Yeah, okay. Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. I will start from our side. So, Mr. Satyanathan, sir, he will start the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone gathered here. Myself is Satyanathan, convener, IAC Welltech. On behalf of Institutions Innovation Council, Welltech, in association with Mastering Up Tech Solutions, I feel honored to welcome you all to the online skill development session titled The Global Importance of Professionalism in Civil Engineering. It's a pleasure to invite our resource person for this event, Dr. Ghada El-Mahdy, Professor of Structural Engineering at British University in Egypt. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
I
You want me to
IAC
start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll
IAC
start.
and Tech Solutions is grateful to you for the acceptance of our invitation and for sharing your valuable time with us, ma'am. IAC Welltech, in association with Tech Solutions, conduct series of events for fostering the culture of innovation, design thinking, and skill development sessions across our educational institute to the uh, future of students and faculty. As a part of this, we are conducting this event to cultivate new ideas in fresh minds of civil engineering students and faculty. Finally, I welcome all the participants to this event. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the introduction. So, before we start Dr. Gada's session, I would like to give some short introduction about her. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Professor Ghada, whose remarkable journey in the field of civil engineering is truly inspiring. So, Professor began her professional career as a structural engineer at Arab Consulting Engineers, where her foundational experiences shaped her understanding of the engineering landscape. Her thirst for knowledge led her to Canada in 1990, where she studied at the University of Windsor, gaining insights that would enrich her contributions to the field. Upon returning to Egypt in 1997, she continued to excel and eventually becoming a senior structural engineer at Arab Consulting Engineers before taking on a pivotal role as a researcher at the Housing and Building National Research Center in 2002. So, Professor Ghada career has taken beyond borders, exemplifying her commitment to making a global impact. In 2003, she joined the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping Operations in New York as Chief of Unit in the Engineering Section, showcasing her ability to apply her expertise in critical international contexts. Her journey is continued in Alberta, Canada, where she earned her license as a professional engineer in the oil and gas industry. And notably, she played a significant role in the UNICEF schools reconstruction project in Aceh and Nias, Indonesia, and following the devastating 2004 tsunami, demonstrating her dedication to humanism engineering. And currently, as a full-time professor at the British University in Egypt and head of the civil engineering department from 2020 to 2023. So, Professor Ghada continues to shape the next generation of engineers. And she has made significant contributions to engineering codes and standards in Egypt and has been recognized for her professional achievements, including her chartered engineer status and fellowship with the Institution of Civil Engineers in the UK. And today, we are honored to have her share her insights and experiences and the vital importance of professionalism in civil engineering. So please join me in welcoming Professor Ghada. So before the session, I would like to give a short intro about our services at Temstech Solutions, a pioneering research shop. So our company is dedicated to developing innovative engineering and management and scientific tech solutions and tailored to support your ecosystem with our forward-thinking approach. We pride ourselves on offering affordable services and robust support backed by a professional and skilled team ready to deliver exceptional business plans. And Temstech Solutions specializes in a comprehensive array of services, including digital marketing, web designing, server management, on-field marketing, Android and iOS development, telecommunications, AI tools, SEO, and web analytics. We also excel in business operations and process automation across the various sectors, such as industrial research, mechanical and automobile, aerospace and defense, electronics and energy, architecture and civil engineering, medical applications, maritime and marine, and more. So, additionally, we are passionate about education through Mastering Up. It's a free platform aimed at unlocking skills for a brighter future. We invite you to join us in empowering young learners by sharing your knowledge and expertise. So, our guest lectures are foster skill development, knowledge sharing, and personal growth, offering a platform to inspire, educate, and connect with an enthusiastic audience eager to learn. Okay, so at the end, I would like to introduce to the motto of Dr. Gada: Engineering for a sustainable future, empowering communities through knowledge and innovation. So, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Gada, and also thanks a lot for joining us today. And over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, are you going to put the presentation on the full screen?
Now, okay, ma'am?
No, put it on the first slide.
First one, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a full screen button?
No, ma'am, I can't able to change anything.
Okay, I'll work like that. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I am Professor Ghada El-Mahdy from the British University in Egypt. I'm honored to be invited here by Mastering Up to be part of this guest speaker series. When I first got the invitation to give my talk, I noted that most of the previous guest speakers were from NASA, and I was in doubt if my field of expertise, which is civil engineering, would be of interest to the learners. However, as I am now here, I'm going to discuss the global importance of professionalism in civil engineering. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Could you change the slide? Thank you. My agenda today will be to give an introduction on the meaning of civil engineering, explain what I mean by professionalism in civil engineering, explain the consequences of leaving civil works unregulated, outline the journey to acquiring professional qualifications in civil engineering, and hopefully to emphasize the importance of recognizing civil engineers, and then to conclude my talk. Next slide. Okay, what is civil engineering in the context of space science? Are we to be in space or down to Earth? Civil engineering is a professional engineering discipline that deals with the design, construction, and maintenance of the physical and naturally built environment, including public works such as roads, bridges, canals, dams, airports, sewage systems, pipelines, and structural components of buildings and railways. Of course, if man ever reaches the possibility of life in space, there will once again be a need to build infrastructure on another planet. The only difference will be the different atmospheric conditions and the different force of gravity. But let's concentrate on our planet Earth. With climate change topping the agenda, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, UN SDGs, are the general goals for a sustainable future for our planet Earth. There are 17 UN SDGs covering the eradication of poverty and hunger, the promotion of good health and well-being, as well as quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and finally, partnership for the goals. This is a very big challenge to our world. And of course, we will not achieve any sustainability if we cannot reach global peace. With wars and conflicts ongoing throughout the world, achieving these sustainable development goals is unforeseeable. World peace is the concept of an ideal state of peace within and among all people and nations on earth. Different cultures, religions, philosophies, and organizations have varying concepts on how such a state would come about. Next slide. So, why professionalism in civil engineering? This is a very good question. The answer may be obvious, but it requires some thought. It's simply someone must be responsible. However, in the current state of world affairs, there is a gap in this concept. Next slide. The definition of professionalism according to the Cambridge Dictionary is the qualities connected with trained and skilled people. Professionalism is a set of standards that an individual is expected to adhere to in a workplace, usually in order to appear serious, uniform, or respectful. What constitutes professionalism is hotly debated and varies from workplace to workplace and between cultures. Professionalism is typically defined as a mix of professional ethics and dress code. Civil engineers are responsible for the delivery and maintenance of infrastructure. The emphasis here is on responsibility. The civil engineer must be a responsible person. A civil engineer is trained and their skills are developed by education. A young graduate may have all the know-how about civil engineering, but being a graduate does not mean they passed all their courses with flying colors. So the question becomes how to measure their competence. Developed countries like those in North America and Europe have a set track for engineering graduates organized by professional bodies responsible for regulating the profession in their own jurisdiction. There is also an internationally recognized professional qualification for civil engineers granted by the Institution of Civil Engineers, the ICE, in the UK. However, many developing countries have still not established a system to regulate their engineering graduates. Next slide. Thank you. To develop in their career, a civil engineer must prove that they are competent and responsible individuals. You can't create infrastructure without making sure that it is safely and efficiently designed, constructed, maintained, and operated. Civil engineers are responsible for safety matters. In fact, according to professional codes of conduct, the safety of the public is paramount. They must know how to design a safe structure and how to construct it. They are responsible for budget matters. They must estimate the cost of a project, whether it be materials or manpower or technology. They must monitor and manage the expenditure of the project, and they must make sure that the project is not a drain on public spending. They are responsible for legal matters in the form of claims and disputes, unauthorized infrastructure, and public pressure. In summary, they are a drive to a nation's economy. Next slide. So what happens when things are unregulated? According to vocabulary.com, when something is unregulated, it knows no bounds. There are no rules or restrictions in place. When you break down the word unregulated, it's easy to figure out what it means. The prefix un reverses an action, so here it means not. Then you have regulated, which describes something that has rules or people who check that things are working properly. So if something is unregulated, there are no rules or people making sure everything is right. Next slide. The most prominent example of an unregulated civil act was the 9/11 suicidal hijacking and flying of civil aviation planes into civil structures in New York. This attack was done in an organized but uncivilized manner to target civil infrastructure, which can only be called an act of terrorism. This is the most horrendous terrorist attack in the Western Hemisphere, which can only be described as an act against humanity. Next slide. Another sign of unregulated practice is financial instability. The Egyptian government is planning to build the world's tallest building, Obelisko Capital, in its new administrative capital. The tower is an incredible 1,000 meters high, leading it to tower over the current tallest building in the world, Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which is only 830 meters high. The conceptual mega-tall skyscraper is designed in the form of a pharaonic obelisk surrounded by a water channel resembling the Nile River. The project was proposed in 2018 as part of the Egypt Vision 2030. However, construction has not yet begun, and the financial situation in Egypt is unstable. The government is unaccountable for this financial instability. Next slide. The global narcotics trade is another example of unregulated money laundering. An unregulated country like Afghanistan grows poppies for opium production, which in turn is a source of illegal revenue to many black market fostering countries. This is the root of drug cartels. Next slide. Another blockbuster situation is the peace in the Middle East. Anti-Semitism causes instability. It leads to people getting displaced and tyrants using them as human shields. This is an example of total chaos and lawlessness, which should not be allowed or recognized as a formal source of government. Next slide. So is stability in the Middle East possible? Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, boldly presented to the United Nations General Assembly two maps: a blessing of cooperation and development and a curse of self-destruction. Which one would you choose? Personally, I'm with the blessing. However, for those in doubt, God's will be done. Next slide. So, who is responsible to oversee that nations are regulated? Is it international organizations as found in the United Nations and its agencies? Is it international professional bodies as recognized by a royal charter? Is it local authorities as in national governments? Or is it local professional bodies such as local professional associations and syndicates? In my opinion, it's all of these in the same hierarchy as listed. Regulation of the engineering profession must start with UN agencies like UN OPS taking the lead and cascading the responsibility to international professional bodies like the ICE that oversees the implementation of professional regulations through local authorities, which in turn implement it through their professional associations and syndicates. Next slide. You may ask, what is the first step of regulating a profession? It's making sure that the graduates are professionally qualified. Next slide. The first step on the journey to get professional qualifications is to successfully complete an undergraduate degree in the same discipline. An undergraduate degree in civil engineering prepares an engineer to handle skills like equilibrium, analysis, design, planning, feasibility studies, budget control, and operation. Next slide. This is the basics of civil engineering, but does not measure the degree of competency of the graduate civil engineer, nor their ability to be responsible for their work. The next step is to gain some experience in civil engineering and get licensed or chartered. Finally, they must show how they are now responsible and in control, possibly reaching fellowship or consulting engineer grade. Next slide. The role of the civil engineer must be recognized by each national government. Next slide. Is the civil engineer to be recognized as a responsible person? Corruption in the developing world tends to lay the blame on the innocent professional to hush them up. So are unregulated nations going to leave the civil engineer to be crucified for iniquities to be left unaccounted for? Maybe you can hush up a professional, but they are still indispensable and will overcome this. Let's pray that each region will establish its own regulating body to combat unlawful practices. Next slide. So in conclusion, what is the aim of this presentation? Next slide. Yes, let's save planet Earth. Let's show love and support for all governments to implement transparent systems of regulating the professions. As quoted by Walt Disney, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Next slide. Thank you for your attention, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. So I have some questions here. So
Okay.
in my first question, how can civil engineering professionals leverage the technology to enhance ethical practices and transparency in project management?
Number one, that the civil engineer has to go through a period of experience and training. They have to become professionally qualified and prove that they are now responsible engineers and are able to control the training and the engineers and in under their supervision. Of course, the software available and undergraduate degrees totally educate students to use this software, but there has to be a stepping stone. There has to be a stepping stone from being a fresh graduate that can use the software and a responsible engineer that is responsible for implementing the project and delivering the project within budget and on time.
Okay. Ma'am, what role will sustainability and environmental responsibility play in shaping the standards of professionalism in civil engineering over the next decades?
Could you say that again? Could you say that again?
Yeah. So, what role will sustainability and environmental responsibility play in shaping the standards of professionalism in civil engineering over the next decade?
Okay, well, everybody's goal now is the sustainability and the sustainable development goals. Governments have set out visions and mandates to achieve sustainable development goals, but still it needs to be regulated. Why do you need to regulate? You have to make sure that this is working, this vision, this implementation of the vision is working. It's not draining the economy, it's producing revenue, not just draining money. You also have to you have to look at the current state of affairs, slums and unofficial buildings and buildings that are not licensed and infrastructure that was built randomly and without authority. You have to look at that and you have to plan on what to do. I mean, that's a lot of infrastructure has to be removed and new infrastructure has to be built, and you have to efficiently and professionally relocate people who are in these unauthorized uh, buildings to authorized places that are more sustainable, that offer jobs and education and a better life for everybody.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. In what ways can international collaborations among civil engineering professionals improve the sharing of best practices and standards for professionalism across different regions?
Well, it's definitely, we have in developed countries like North America and Europe, they have very well established professional tracks in which their graduates are placed in training for a certain number of years, and then they pass a few exams and they move on to becoming professionals. This track is not set up for developing countries. In Egypt, we don't have a track to measure the competence or the professionalism of a graduate. A graduate graduates, uh, gets registered in the syndicate, and that's more or less, he just continues in his career. If he wants to take higher academic degrees, okay, but there is no set system to measure their competencies or how far they have achieved the attributes of being an engineer or a civil engineer. We have international bodies like the ICE in the UK, which grants, and it's an international organization, and it grants to its members professional statuses, which if you're looking for an international career, that's the route to take. On the other hand, I believe that there has to be some sort of supervision of national professional bodies and national governments to implement their own tracks, their own professional development tracks, and their own professional development qualifications to measure the competency of their civil or engineers in general.
Yeah, okay, thank you, ma'am. How can ongoing education and training programs adapt to ensure that civil engineers remain proficient in the latest technologies and ethical considerations in their work?
Well, technology is developing quickly. In my day, when I was a young graduate, there was no computers, and we did all the design. There was very limited number of computers, and we did all the design and drawing by hand. Now every engineer is sitting at a computer terminal, working as a group on software, using a 3D model, uh, collaborating with each other on this 3D model. The only, I mean, that's the perfect solution, but the only drawback is that engineer has to be aware of the safety responsibilities and the management responsibilities in actually building infrastructure. It's not just a model, it has to go from the model to the ground and become an actual project.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am. My final question. So, what impact do you envision emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and automation will have on the professionalism and responsibilities of civil engineers in the future?
Well, artificial intelligence is definitely in. I'm finding new applications for it every day. Uh, I think since everything construction is now becoming digitalized, the trend now is to make sure that each project has its digital 3D building information model. That every project, well, once each project has its model, national governments or authorities should then start building a database of their national infrastructure consisting of all these models planned just as Google Maps started as a project and grew into an incredible GPS system that everybody uses to get places. Well, we need this kind of technology to build a database of current infrastructure that will help with decision making, uh, whether infrastructure is there to stay or it should be replaced, or what should be done. It's a governmental matter, a legal matter, but I think that should be the future trend in civil engineering.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So, Gopi Kumar sir, Satyanand sir, if you have any other question?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, ma'am. So, thank you so much. Thanks for the useful answers. The answers are very useful. I hope the access and that the participants and understand about that. So, finally, so ladies and gentlemen and esteemed guests, as we draw this session to a close, it's my privilege to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Ghada. Dr. Ghada's extensive experience and insights into the global importance of professionalism in civil engineering have not only enlightened us, but have also inspired us to uphold the highest standards in our work. So, her remarkable journey from her early days as a structural engineer to her pivotal roles in international organizations and academia serves as a testament to the impact the dedication and professionalism can have in our field. So, we are truly grateful for her willingness to share her knowledge and experiences and vision for the future of civil engineering with us today. So thank you, Dr. Gada, for your invaluable contributions to this session, for your ongoing commitment to advancing the profession. We look forward to applying the insights and gain today as we strive to foster professionalism in our own practices. So thank you everyone for your active participation